With Jasmine's passing, Raxel Lau, her eldest son, became the next in line for succession. However, at just 14 years old, Raxel was too young to assume full control of the Confederation. Consequently, the day-to-day affairs of the Confederation were entrusted to the designated regent, the Duke of Sion, Edmund Salandar. Salandar's regency was, to put it simply, uneventful, in the best way possible. During an era where war was common, the Capellan Confederation enjoyed both internal stability and external peace. Edmund fulfills the duties as regent faithfully, consistently prioritizing the state's welfare over personal gain. He only exercises considerable authority once, allocating a substantial sum of state funds to Earthworks Limited to support the development of locally designed battlemechs. In 2482, when Raxel came of age, Edmund resigned from his position without hesitation. However, in an unexpected turn of events, Raxel abdicated the throne a mere 12 minutes after his inauguration, transferring the chancellorship to his twin brother, Hendrik. Raxel, driven by a passion for scholarly pursuits, aspired to become a scientist, a career he considered, in his own words, less of a target. Thus began the reign of Hendrik Lau. Hendrik grew up as a student of Edmund, inheriting and valuing the traits of a responsible leader. During his reign, Hendrik established several new ministries to better serve the needs of the Confederation's expanding population. These ministries were granted semi-autonomous status, as communication increasingly became a challenge, particularly for systems located far from the capital. Hendrik also had a deep appreciation for the military, not for its offensive capabilities, but for its role in maintaining peace. During his reign, a military mech complex was developed, marking a significant shift towards prioritizing mechs over traditional armored forces such as tanks. This transformation elevated mechs to the Confederation's most valuable military asset. Furthermore, this period saw the rise of the Lorix Order, advocates of the Lorix Creed. We'll look into them a bit more in the next chapter. Throughout his reign, Hendrik was widely liked and respected, facing minimal opposition. However, this changed in 2515 when he mishandled a potential alliance with the Terran hegemony. His decision to decline the offer led the hegemony to align with the Free Worlds League, which reaped the benefits of increased trade and technology exchanges. Struggling to cope with the criticism and unwilling to take drastic measures to resolve the issue, Hendrik abdicated in 2520, passing leadership to his nephew, Kelvin. This was a grave mistake. But before we continue into a darker time, let's look into the Lorix Order first, especially their creed, as it directly contributed to how the entirety of human space views and treats mech warriors. Calval Lorix was far from what one might call a paragon. He was an off-and-on drunk and a known drug addict. Calvar showed little regard for the sanctity of marriage, his own or anyone else's. Rumors circulated about his involvement in organizing underground blood fights, where individuals from the lower castes were forced to battle each other, with the promise of caste elevation as a reward. His skills as a mech warrior were unremarkable, though he would claim otherwise. But despite his many flaws, the order and creed he established continued to be recognized and referenced within Unisphere society. The Lorix Order was founded around the year 2505, during the height of Hendrik Lau's reign over the Capellan Confederation and the transitional period that elevated battlemechs to prominence. Calva believed that mech warriors occupied a distinct and superior class in society, second only to heads of state. He argued that it was the duty of the rest of society to serve mech warriors in exchange for their service and protection. Unsurprisingly, this ideology attracted significant support from mech warriors. The Order's philosophy of protecting civilians aligned closely with Hendrik Lau's vision of maintaining a strong military force to deter potential threats. The idea of mech warriors adhering to this code promised, at least theoretically, a more disciplined and dedicated fighting force. Consequently, the Lorix Creed was made required reading for all junior officers in the Capellan Confederation Armed Forces. Over time, the creed was exported to other states and eventually adopted by the respective militaries as well. There are 6 dicta that make up the creed. Whether there are more than 6 is unknown, but these are the most prominent ones. Number 1. The individual citizen has the right to expect the highest degree of professionalism from the officers who decide his fate. Number 2. The highest order of warrior and defender is and shall forever be the mech warrior. Number 3. Mech warriors are and should remain a special breed unto themselves. They should be accorded the highest honor possible, and in turn should be expected to perform the most outstanding feats of daring in defense of the state and its citizens. Number 4. To perform the most important tasks, mech warriors must be afforded opportunities to advance their various skills and expertise to the highest possible level. To this end, war is an acceptable way of life because it inevitably contributes to the defense of the state with the increased skill of its defenders. Number 5. Once a mech warrior has reached the summit of his profession, only another mech warrior has the right to terminate his life. Conversely, in certain cases, such as personal or professional betrayal, the mech warrior has a right to exact personal retribution without fear of reprisal. And number 6, the highest and most important ideal in any mech warrior's life is loyalty to the citizenry he protects, to the state that provides, and to the chief executive of the state, who is the mech warrior's commander-in-chief. These principles form the original creed that followers were expected to uphold. However, this adherence lasted only a few decades. Many perished while attempting to fulfill the 3rd and 4th tenets due to either lack of ability or the misuse of the 5th and 6th tenets as justifications or insubordination. Such actions often resulted in the execution of mech warriors. Consequently, in modern times, most mech warriors adhere to only 1 or 2 precepts. In the modern Confederation military, the order has long since vanished, but its ideas and teachings serve as the foundation of the Capellan warrior house orders. These orders operated independently from the regular military forces and were accountable only to the Chancellor. Each house maintained its own beliefs and philosophy, with House Lushan and House Ijori continuing to uphold the original tenets. I recall Calvin's first visit to Kearney with horror. Not far from the spaceport en route to the reception stands, Calvin noticed a number of crippled among the crowd cheering and waving their flags along with the rest. I remember seeing him smile at the time, though none could imagine what he had in store for us. At the reception, in the middle of his prepared speech, Calvin announced his intention to hold a gigantic banquet in honor of all the poor, the lame, the crippled, and the blind of the city's inhabitants. The announcement brought waves of applause. Afterward, Calvin rented the largest meeting hall in town and, out of his own coffers, filled the entire facility with every type of fare imaginable. Word got around, and by mid-evening, half the town turned out to witness the gala event. Over 2,000 individuals, so it was later estimated, were Calvin's guests of honor that evening. The city's poor, disabled, blind, all ages, all walks of life. After toasting their good health, Calvin joined in and had a merry time, so it seemed, was held by all. About an hour after the festivities began, Calvin left the auditorium, pleading pressing state business. All inside were urged to continue enjoying themselves as long as they wished. No one noticed the doors being silently locked as Calvin left the room. No one noticed the flames either, until the walls began to glow red hot. Panic erupted, and those who were mobile tried to jump through the windows. Those who did were cut down by Calvin's guards surrounding the building. We heard the flames, the breaking glass, the cries of astonishment, the horrid sound of Chancellor Calvin clapping his hands in delight over the carnage. There was nothing we could do. It was a long night. Calvin Lau is widely regarded by historians as one of the worst chancellors to ever hold the position. Ascending to the throne at the age of 28, he initially appeared to be a promising leader. He was considered an intelligent man with a sharp sense of humor that endeared him to many. Calvin also was the first chancellor trained in battletech piloting. However, upon assuming power, he quickly revealed his true nature to the world. Calvin Lau was a megalomaniac who believed he was destined to become the most renowned leader in human space. Once he ascended to the top, he felt no need to play nice and set out to demonstrate the true meaning of power. The first signs of trouble emerged when he claimed the state had not provided sufficient resources to support his regal lifestyle. Calvin turned his attention to the nobility, targeting them with the aid of the Maskarovka, using blackmail, threats, and even outright murder. He seized their fortunes to bolster his own. Anyone perceived as opposing him faced tribunals that either ended in imprisonment or death. Not even his own family was safe. In 2521, his uncle, Hendrik Lau, was executed on fabricated charges. Calvin was equally vile within his own household. Lewd and depraved events were a common occurrence. The families of imprisoned opposition members would sometimes attend these gatherings, offering themselves in desperate attempts to secure the release of their loved ones. Tragically, their efforts were almost always in vain, yielding nothing but shame and humiliation. The only thing Calvin loved, or more accurately, obsessed over, more than himself, was a young woman named Massilia Ellard, the daughter of the Duke of Andurian. He first met her during an unofficial visit to the system in 2518, 2 years before his inauguration. Captivated by her charm, he became convinced that she was the only woman for him. But unfortunately for Calvin, Massilia's father opposed any union with the Lau family. After ascending to the chancellorship, Calvin relentlessly pursued her hand in marriage, reportedly proposing at least 455 times, all of which were firmly rejected. Calvin's frustration over his inability to claim Massilia as his own began to affect other aspects of his rule. In a dramatic display of his obsession and power, he passed a decree permitting multiple marriages and promptly married 3 women. Over time, his number of wives expanded to 26, all while he continued his relentless pursuit of Massilia. Calvin's descent to madness continued throughout the decade. In 2523, a young nobleman from Nanking attempted to assassinate him. However, the would-be assassin was intercepted by the Red Lancers, the Lau family's personal guard. Seizing absolute authority, Calvin appointed himself as both judge and executioner, sentencing the nobleman to be publicly drawn and quartered. The gruesome execution was broadcast and widely distributed by news agencies across the Confederation. Calvin blamed the failed assassination attempt entirely on Duke Ellard, Massilia's father, alleging collusion with members of the House of Scions. The same year, he ordered the decimation of the house, hiring mercenaries to randomly execute 1 in every 10 members. The following year, the House of Scions was dissolved entirely, and the rights of individual nobles to govern their planets were suspended. Calvin replaced the existing leadership with new planetary administrators, known as the Diem. In 2527, Calvin expelled ambassadors from the Free Worlds League in retaliation for the continued refusal to approve marriage with Massilia. The following year, this conflict escalated into full-scale war over the Andurian system. Although systems were exchanged between the two sides, the war ended inconclusively, with no clear resolution achieved. But the final 2 years of his life, Calvin had descended fully into paranoia and madness. Believing his 26 wives were plotting to murder him in his sleep, he had them all executed en masse. His reign came to a sudden end on March 13, 2530, when he was murdered by a member of the Red Lancers.